Welcome everyone. My name is Marit. I do NVivo training and support for Alfasoft since over 5 years now. And just like Torgrim said, I would like to know a little bit more about who's sitting in this webinar with me today. So there are two quick polls that we want to run. The first one is, which version of NVivo are you using? Are you already using the latest version, NVivo 14? Maybe you are on the previous version, NVivo R1, or you don't use NVivo at all. So anyone who wants to answer that is very welcome to do so. And maybe, Torgrim, you can let me know if we already got some answers that could give us an idea of who's in the webinar today.
Yeah, looking at the answers, I can see that 35% is using the latest version, NVivo 14. 15% is using NVivo 12 or older, and 40% are not using or have not used NVivo now. So
okay,
there's quite a lot of new people here.
Yeah, maybe if you can, maybe we also run the second poll then to see if we have some expert users or some beginners in this webinar.
Let's see here. I will launch it. There you go.
So maybe you are already using NVivo regularly. Maybe you have been to our trainings before. Maybe you have just tried a little bit yourself and now are curious to see what other options are there. And maybe you have no experience so far. And of course, I want to make sure that everyone in this webinar can understand what NVivo is about. And I hope I can show something new for everyone today. So Torgrim, do you think you have an idea of how the group is divided?
Yes, it looks like about half the people here today have no experience so far with NVivo. 35% have used it a little bit, and 10% I'm using it regularly. So,
great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. That was the poll. So let's get started with the presentation. So today I will start with a general introduction. Also, now that I know that a lot of you have not used NVivo before at all, I think it makes sense that I spend a little bit of time with explaining what NVivo is about and how to use it, and what the main elements in NVivo are that we are using for our qualitative and mixed method analysis. And then today I want to spend a little bit more time on showing you how you can collaborate with NVivo 14 and the Collaboration Cloud module. Because those of you who have been using NVivo before, you know that there are maybe different strategies that you can use for teamwork in NVivo, but with NVivo 14 and the Collaboration Cloud add-on module, you can really work in real time with your team members by uploading your project to a cloud where you can invite team members. And this also allows for collaboration on projects across Windows and Mac, which is something that is pretty new. And then in the end of the session, I will show you a little bit of how you can analyze data that comes from Citavi in NVivo. And hopefully in the end, we will have time for questions. But as was mentioned before, we try to answer your questions as good as we can in the background. And then in the end, I will hopefully have time for a quick Q&A if there are any questions left. So NVivo supports the entire research process. So just to give you an idea of what NVivo is and how you can use it throughout the research process. So NVivo is obviously a qualitative data analysis software, so you can use it to analyze any type of qualitative data like text, video, audio. But throughout the research process, there are other solutions from the, let's say, NVivo family that you can add to just, make the process a little bit smoother. So we all know any research project starts with a literature review. We need to find out what literature is available on our topic, what studies have been published so far, what's the state of the art, where is the gap in the literature that we want to fill with our project, the questions that we are trying to answer. And of course, for that, we need to, do a literature review. If you want to do a literature review, search for literature, all of that, you can use a reference management software, for instance, Citavi. and Citavi. We will have a webinar just after this one on Citavi if you're interested in hearing a little bit more on how Citavi actually works and what makes it so unique as a reference management tool. And what's interesting is if you do your literature review with Citavi, you can also import your data into NVivo, which I will demonstrate a little bit in the end of this session. Then, depending on what type of project you're doing, you will be collecting data, right? Some of you will do interviews, so you might have audio and video files of these recordings. Some might do surveys with open-ended questions. Some might do a document analysis. So you will be collecting your data in different forms. And those of you who are doing interviews and have audio and video files, you will at some point need to transcribe them. And luckily, there are two ways basically of how you can deal with audio and video files in NVivo. If you want to transcribe them, you can simply import them into NVivo and start the transcription process manually. So there's kind of a built-in toolbox for those of you who want to transcribe manually. You don't need to purchase an additional transcription software. However, if you have the resources and want to have your transcripts a little bit quicker, you can also purchase the add-on module NVivo transcription, which allows you to upload your audio and video files to the NVivo transcription platform, and then they will be transcribed automatically. And then you can bring them back into NVivo. And in NVivo, the desktop version, this one is available for Mac and Windows. This is where we really import our files. We organize everything. We start the analysis. We visualize what we have found, and so on. For some of you, and I hope for most of you, this will be interesting. Some of you will be working in teams, and NVivo offers different solutions for teamwork so that you can share your project with others. What we are going to look at today is how you can work in a team when you use NVivo 14, the latest version, in addition with the Collaboration Cloud add-on module, which really allows for simultaneous collaboration on the same project file. And then finally, in the process, at some point, we are done with our analysis. We want to publish our work. And you will see, I will try to show you today that NVivo offers a lot of visualizations, different ways of how you can also export your results and your data so that you can actually publish about it. NVivo really supports a wide range of data, as I've mentioned, Word documents, PDFs, audio, video files, import from reference management tools like Citavi as possible. You can also analyze, import and analyze data from social media like Facebook or YouTube. And if you work with data sets, there's direct import for SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics, or you can also, if you have a data set with open-ended questions, import it as an Excel file. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, I'm a qualitative researcher, but so far I've done everything kind of, you know, manually, or on paper, or just with a mix of different documents on my computer, and it worked fine. So why should I be using qualitative data analysis software like NVivo? And my answer would be, NVivo is just a tool for you as a researcher that can help you really be more efficient in your analysis. So one of the main things that we do in NVivo is code our data. So let's say you did some interviews and you ask everyone, like we see on the screen, about the water quality in the area. So you collect all these quotes by coding them to this category. And then you want to learn more about it. You maybe want to compare groups based on their age. What do people of different age say about water quality? Or if they talk about water quality, do they also talk about other topics at the same time? And all of this is something that is easier done in a software like NVivo, where you have the powerful queries that can help you find overlaps or patterns. Or you can also run lexical queries just to get an idea of how words are used in your documents or also in context. Yeah, and all these visualizations and queries can, of course, help you to not only explore your data in more depth, but also to explain your results to others. A few more words on NVivo transcription for those of you who thought, oh, maybe this could be interesting for me. So NVivo transcription is an automated transcription assistant. So what you do is you go to the NVivo transcription platform, you upload your audio or video file, and then you can automatically have it transcribed. Usually it takes about half of the time of the length of the audio. So if you have a 60-minute interview, it should be back in 30 minutes. And then you have an editor that you can use to add your speaker names or add speaker breaks if they weren't correct, or you can really listen to the audio and see how it was transcribed. And then you can also make corrections if anything is, wasn't picked up correctly. NVivo just a couple of weeks ago added more languages, and up to a couple of weeks ago, we only had 28 languages that were supported. Now we have 42. So there's really a lot of languages that you can choose from and transcribe for. Okay, so far the intro. I would like to go to NVivo now to show you really how you can start a new project, how it would look like, and what the main elements in an NVivo project are. And then from there, we will start with the collaboration part of the presentation. So what you see right now is the NVivo 14 start screen for NVivo R1, the previous version. It looks almost the same. So you have a little login part here, which is basically only relevant for two things. Most of us have to log in at least once to activate our license on our computer. But if you want to work with cloud projects like I am doing, you will also need to be logged in the correct account, either to be the project owner or if a cloud project was shared with you. This is why I'm logged in. I want to start with creating a new project real quick, which I will just, name ODD autumn or something. And then I click next. Right now, I still have the option to choose the autosave or save reminder option. This will change once I upload this to the cloud. When you upload a project to the cloud, it will be automatically synchronized and saved all the time. But for regular local projects, you can either choose autosave or get this save reminder every 15 minutes. Okay. Now it should be starting. Okay, we get a little tour, but we don't need this right now. But please note, those of you who are novice users, you get help pages like this and little tours almost anywhere in NVivo, so check those out. So what I want to start with is just by creating some folders and import some files. So we have three main sections here in NVivo. The first is the import section, which is where I organize my files with my folder, or import my files. Then we have the second part that says organize, which is where I add my codes. So codes in NVivo are our categories, themes, topics, anything that is relevant really to answer our research questions. And we also have something called cases, which is when you want to add more information about, for instance, your interview participants, like demographic information about their gender, age, location, whatever you have selected. And then we have our explore section where we can store queries and maps. Okay, let's just create a new folder for interviews here, and another one for pictures and for news articles. So I'm doing this a little bit faster than I would do this in my trainings. In my trainings, I really do this step by step. Okay, so if I want to import something, there are different ways of how I can import, but let's maybe check out this third tab here where it says import. Here's where you find the different options of what you can import into an NVivo project. The first thing is you could import a whole project into another project. This is relevant for those who are maybe using a previous version of NVivo and are not using the add-on module Collaboration Cloud, and they want to merge the work of two people. Then we have something called NCapture. This is interesting for those who have captured data from the internet. So there's an add-on called NCapture that you can install in Chrome, and you can browse the internet. And if you have captured something previously, let me just see if I have captured something. It will be displayed here. So I have captured a web page, our German NVivo shop in the past. It's really old. So you get the URL, you get the date and time when you captured it, which is important because we all know internet data changes really, really fast, and whatever is on this page might not even be there today. So when you capture from the internet, it's really important that you get the date as well. And then you could import this. You can also import surveys. Here's the button where you can add from Citavi, which I will mention in a little bit. But let's just import some regular files, some Word documents first. And then I will do the same thing for some PDFs. Here in the news article folder, instead of going from the ribbon here, you could also just do a right click to import items. There we go. And then finally, some pictures. So you see, when you have regular, regular simple file formats like PDFs, Word documents, and pictures, it's really easy to import them. When you have a little bit more complex data, like bibliographies or data sets, then you will have a wizard that helps you import it correctly. Okay, let's have a look at our data here. So I'm going to my interviews folder and we'll open the Margaret interview. And now I just want to demonstrate a little bit of what you can do in NVivo once you have imported your text-based data. So here in Margaret's interview, for instance, we learned that Margaret works at a museum, and I maybe want to take a note or make an annotation that I would like to find out which museum she works at. For this in NVivo, we can create something called annotations. So I just click here and post my question, or which museum it should be. When you create an annotation, it really just helps you to get a little reminder here. You get a little speech bubble and a blue highlight. You can switch on and off whether you want to view the annotations or not, but it really helps you know, if you have a thought, a quick thought, or have a follow-up question, or there's abbreviations in your text, just use an annotation. If you need a little bit more space to write about your data, you can also create something called memos. So if I'm now realizing, oh, I really need to write more about Margaret, I can simply add a memo to her document. I click here on link to new memo, and I call this one interview memo Margaret. So any memo that I create needs a name, and some memos can be linked to specific items like documents or codes, and others can be free floating. Any memo that I create will open an edit mode for me, like a blank Word document basically, and I can start writing. So I will just add date and time, and then I can from here add my little summary or questions, or just, you know, document the state in which this file is, whether I need to code, etc. All my annotations and memos will be sitting here in the organize section under notes. There's a memo folder and there's an annotations folder. Okay, this is what I can do to take notes and write about our data, but what about the codes? So let's go back to Margaret's interview. In NVivo, I can use categories or codes to code my data. So this will be relevant for any one of you who uses a category-based analysis approach to their with their data. So what I can do here under codes is I can simply deductively create some new codes. So for instance, I know that I will have content about environment in my data. With codes, I always recommend to note down the idea or rule for coding in the description box. You can also add colors. So the color for environment, obviously green. So here we have the environment code. Let's do another one, new code for tourism. And the color should be pink. Once you have your codes, and these are flexible, you can change them at a later point. Once you have your codes, there are different techniques that you can use to actually code your data. So here I want to show you the drag and drop. If you mark something, you can just drag and drop it into the list of codes. Let's try this with this one. In Word documents, you can also switch on a code panel, which is basically the same thing, just on the other side. So you get a code panel here with the list of all your codes, where you again can use the drag and drop to code your data. And here I can switch it off again. To see what you've coded so far, you can simply switch on the coding stripes, which is the stripey symbol here, recently coded. And right now, the colors don't correspond with the colors that I chose. So let me fix that real quick and choose item colors for my coding stripes. So now I can click on the stripe here for tourism and see everything in red that is coded to tourism, or blue, green for everything that is coded to environment. There's also other ways of coding. So I could also mark something instead of doing the drag and drop. I do a right click. If I do a right click, I get different options. One is the code to recent codes, which is really cool because then I can quickly just choose from any code that I just recently used. Or I can also, let me do that again, do a right click and choose code selection. And here I could also code to several codes at the same time by just holding the control key. So if this piece of text in the background is about environment and tourism, I can just pick the two and code the selection to multiple items. Obviously, I can also create new codes if I find any quote or text that doesn't fit any of my existing categories. I can just go ahead and code the selection to a new top level code, right? So this is really flexible. Same goes for PDFs. So if I go to my news articles and open any of my PDFs, of course, I can also code those. Oops. So if I have text, I get basically the same options. I can code to recent codes or make an annotation. With pictures within PDFs, it's a little bit different. We have two options here, text and region coding. So I quickly have to switch to region, and this would then allow me to also code, whoops, let's do that again, pictures to a code. Here we go. Anything that I've coded will then be visible in the code. I can just open the code by doing a double click, for instance, and I will see all the quotes that I have, or all the pieces of text, which are called references in NVivo, and can review them. In Windows, it's a bit funny. I get just pictures for the picture, but I can switch to the PDF tab to actually see the picture that I coded. Yeah, and from here I can of course go on, right? I can read whatever I've coded, I can adjust my coding if needed, and I can make up my mind. Okay, but I think what we have so far is enough to actually share this project with someone. So let's imagine this is my project, and I have created some codes, I have imported some files, and now I want to share this with another person. So first of all, let me just maybe start with a little introduction here. So the process that I'm about to show you is how you can work in real time in NVivo, which is a new way of collaborating. So in NVivo 14, you can purchase the add-on module Collaboration Cloud, and whoever purchased it will also be the project owner. So the idea is, if you want to share your project with others, if you want to invite others to collaborate on your project, you need a license or a subscription for the NVivo Collaboration Cloud module. And of course, everyone also needs to be on NVivo 14. Once this is done, the first team member who should be on Windows, this is what we need in the first release, creates a project just like I did, and then uploads it to the cloud. Once that's uploaded to the cloud, it can be, I can add team members and invite them to the project, and those team members can then clone the project to their project. And once this is done, everyone can work in real time. No more merging. Those of you who have experience with NVivo and tried different teamwork methods in the past, you don't need to merge anymore. So everyone is really working on the same project file at the same time, and then there's the synchronizing in the background, so that your changes will be synchronized after just a couple of seconds. There's an online-offline functionality, so if one of you happens to be offline, then any changes that were made during this time will be updated once the person is online again. Regarding security, the cloud is hosted on Microsoft Azure, and the server locations for us that are relevant for our territory are located in Europe, I believe in the Netherlands. And then, of course, it's GDPR and HIPAA compliant. So basically, there's two steps to how this works. As I said, one of you, the project owner, needs to purchase the Collaboration Cloud add-on module. Those of you who have purchased NVivo licenses in the past, or maybe an admin themselves, you know that there's something called the My NVivo portal, which is a portal where you can review your purchases, but where you can also assign seats. So for the Collaboration Cloud, if you have purchased it, you can there assign a seat for your future team members. And then the second part is where we actually are in NVivo and then collaborate with each other. Just a few words about the different roles. I've mentioned the word project owner a couple of times. So it's really one person who owns the project, and this person can upload the project and assign or remove team members. The project owner can also edit documents, so if there are any typos, etc. And the project owner can create, delete, and merge codes. The collaborators who are invited to the project can clone the project so that it's on their local device. They can import files, which is great. Let's imagine you work from different locations and everyone has to contribute something. They can import their files. They can also create new codes. So there's no limitation in who is allowed to create new codes, maybe also inductively. Of course, we all know in a team, you always have to talk about the new codes that you create. Collaborators can obviously code to new or existing codes, and they can also create new memos and add to existing memos. However, they cannot delete stuff. I think this makes sense. Okay, so let's now see how this would look like in my project. So if I want to share this project, I go to share. And please remember, you need to be logged in with an account that has a subscription to Collaboration Cloud. If you have that, you will see this button here where it says Upload Project. So I will just click there. Oh yeah, maybe I should save before I do that. Should have done this before. I hope this is still working. And now the project is uploading. Maybe while we are waiting for this to upload, are there any immediate questions that would fit that I could answer while we are waiting for the upload? No, now it's done. Okay, the upload is complete, but I also didn't see any questions, so I can close this. All right, so I hope all of this worked. So now that I have uploaded it, the upload button is grayed out, so I can only upload at once. And now I can go to where it says Manage Team. And in my team, I can now assign anyone who already has a seat under my subscription. If I haven't done this, I can just click here, go to subscription and sign into the portal and fix that. But I have added my team members here, and I will simply add myself just for the demonstration purposes. So let's see. Add user is what I need to click, obviously. And then you see that this is the account that I'm currently logged in with. This is the owner who has uploaded the project, and this is another account where I will be added as a collaborator. And then from here, I will switch actually to the Mac version of NVivo to show you how you can then access the project as a collaborator. So I opened NVivo 14 for Mac. And to get access to the cloud projects that have been shared with you, you have to go up here in the file where it says File and Cloud Projects. And of course, I need to sign in again with the correct account. Give me 1 second here. So I'm logging in, and then it will pull up all the collaboration cloud projects that I have been either created myself in the past on this account or that I have been invited to. And let's sort for creation date. And here is the project that I have just created. This one. And now this is a bit tricky. I don't know why this is not automated, but what we need to do as a collaborator who clones the project to their computer, you need to give it the same file name and title. I wish it would put the name automatically, but so far it doesn't. So let's just type it in correctly like we see it in the list. Okay, I'm taking the same name here and also put it in the title. There's always a file name and a title. Once this is done, we can just click on Create Project. Of course, check if the folder is correct. And then it will create a clone or download the project. This, again, of course, takes a little while, always depending on your internet connection. Okay, now it says 100% complete. So let's see. I will close this, and sometimes it opens automatically. Maybe I have to, yeah, it's doing something. So let's give it a few seconds. So it's automatically opening the cloud project. Now you see NVivo for Mac looks a little bit different. It's also, the font is here a little bit smaller, but I hope you will still be able to see. So let's see if everything worked. So under my files, I see the interview folder that I have just created. I see in Margaret's interview, there's a memo attached. There is some coding, 2 codes, 6 references. Let's check the news articles for the fisherman PDF. I can switch on the coding stripes maybe and see, yes, all the coding is here. All the codes I see here in this list. And what's interesting also is that I see who created them. There's something called user profiles in NVivo. And for this demonstration purposes, I'm going to use different ones, obviously. So this initials MB come from the Windows project. But when I now create a new code, it will have my initials from this user. So let's say I'm starting to work on this project as a collaborator and decide, oh, under tourism, we actually need a new code for ecotourism, which could be a subcode. I just create a new code, ecotourism, and click done. And then you see that this is done by a different person with the different initials. So I can add new codes that I can also code with. Let's just maybe go to one of the interviews here. In In Mac, you can also use drag and drop, but you can also use the right-click coding. Let's see if I can, yeah, this is how drag and drop looks like in, in Mac. So I just dragged it into my new code, ecotourism. I will also show you, I'm just looking at the time, I will also show you how you can code in pictures now that we are in this project. So let's maybe open this picture here. So with pictures in NVivo, you basically have two ways of coding them. Either you code the whole picture. For that, the easiest would always be to just go from the list here, do a right click on the picture and choose code files to either existing codes or new code. And I will code this to environment. You might have noticed that my coding analytically makes not a lot of sense. When you are doing it yourself, obviously, you will have to read very carefully and decide whether what you're coding makes sense, right? I'm just doing this to speed things up a little bit. So now I have coded the whole picture, but I could also just code parts of it by just marking, for instance, this lighthouse and doing a right click. And then I can code this to ecotourism. Maybe this is a place where you can actually stay. That would be nice. And everything, of course, that I've coded, I can now review. So I could go ahead and just do a double click on my ecotourism code, and I could see the piece of text that I've coded, as well as the picture that I've coded. And everything should be synced more or less automatically. Sometimes, let's just check if this is the case. Sometimes it takes a little bit of clicking back and forth. So maybe let's go to the picture here. So far it hasn't come in. So let's just see. Yeah, that's always the German Vorführ effect. Let's just see if it will come in. No, wait, maybe there's a trick. Maybe I shouldn't need to save, but let's just try. Let's just go to File and Save. So it should be saving automatically, but just in case. Here now you see that it's now synchronizing. So something is happening. Let's maybe see if we now, see, and now the picture that I coded on the Mac is also coded on Windows, as I can see here from the codes and references. So we always, I need to be a bit patient, which is bad when I'm doing a live webinar, but it works, it's updating. And from here, I could then continue. Okay, so much about the collaboration cloud for now. I think it's pretty straightforward. Once you have set up everything, once you have created your project and uploaded it as a project owner, it's pretty simple. If I want to manage my team and at some point add a new team member or remove someone, I can do that really easily, and then we can work together. So no more merging. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes to see if I missed something. No, I don't think so. So I guess I can now also give you a little introduction on the next thing that is new in NVivo 14, which is Citavi Insights. Okay, a little bit of a switch of topics, but as I mentioned, Citavi is a reference management software. And when you combine Citavi and NVivo, you can have a really nice and powerful way of doing your literature review. So in Citavi, and as I mentioned, there will be a webinar just following this one about Citavi if you're interested in how it works. In Citavi, we can, of course, collect and manage our articles. We can search for literature and add it to our references in different ways. And what's really unique about Citavi is that we also get so-called knowledge organizers, where we can, for instance, create categories to tag different journal articles, or we can also create direct and indirect quotations and add annotations in our project. So you can really enrich your references already in Citavi, which can then also be used once you want to write up your report. Now, what's interesting is now NVivo comes in. So NVivo sorry, I have to start again. So Citavi, now with the newest version, you can export to NVivo. And what's interesting and what's also different to how you would import references before that is that it takes all these knowledge organizer items with it. So any categories that you've used, any direct or indirect quotations will be brought into NVivo as codes, for instance. So from here, you can go a step further in your literature review. So you can, with all the visualizations and the codes that you have in NVivo, you can start to identify gaps, you can start to look for patterns, and then in the end, both can be, of course, be used for a sound report. So just to give you some idea of what the import does. So all categories and subcategories from Citavi are imported as codes and subcodes into NVivo. So what we've done so far manually will be imported from Citavi. Then in NVivo, all references without PDFs or with PDFs will be imported as files. So any journal articles where you have a PDF, you can actually, like we've just seen, read, code, etc. Direct quotations that you have created and where you have added a knowledge organizer category are coded to this code with this category name. And of course, also abstracts are imported. What this means is once you have imported from Citavi, you can then use the different queries and visualizations. So for instance, what we see here is a so-called comparison diagram, and it's a comparison diagram of two articles. And the circles that you see are the codes. So we see how these different articles are coded, what they have in common and what they do not have in common. You can also create a word cloud, which is, the result of a word frequency query to see what words are used either in a specific document or in a list of documents. And since NVivo also brings in all the background information from Citavi, like the year of publication, you can also look for patterns. You can see if you can run a cross step and see how a topic that you coded for evolves over time. So it's really, really cool. And then, of course, in the end, as I've said, we want to we want to write about our data, and there is something called a Citavi assistant that helps you, write your report or write up your results in Word with, and bring in all the references from Citavi. And of course, you can also import all the visualizations that you have from NVivo to really have the full picture. So just to give you an idea of how this could look like, I just want to go back to my windows and show you Citavi. Again, I'm not an expert at all. We will have a really great webinar just after this, but just so that you know what you need to do. If you want to import from Citavi to NVivo, first of all, your project has to be a cloud project. So whether you're using Citavi for desktop or Citavi for web, it doesn't matter as long as your project is in cloud. And then you also have to, again, because you want to share a cloud project, you need to be signed in with the correct account to be able to share. So this is how Citavi looks like. I'm not going into much detail here, but here you have your references. Some have a PDF attached. You get a preview here, and you can add, as I said, when you work on your files, you can add quotations from your file under knowledge. You will find all the categories that have been created that will help you to, arrange your articles, but also you can use them to also use for your quotes and quotations. Now, what what's interesting for us is this button up here, share with NVivo. So if I want to share my project with NVivo, maybe I'm done with we recommend you are done with the literature search, right? You maybe are not planning to add anything more, but now you want to take a step further in the literature analysis. You can click on where it says share with NVivo. And below here, you'll get this little box where it says this project is being shared with NVivo. And once this is done, you can actually open NVivo and then click on this import from Citavi button. And from there, you can decide, do I want to bring in all my references, or do I want to bring in all my categories, or just some? And once this is done, it should look like this. I have just already created such a project just to speed things up a little bit for us. So once you have imported everything from Citavi, it can look a little bit like this. So you get under Files, you get an additional folder called References. And here you find all the journal articles, or all the articles, all your references. This one here, for instance, is a PDF. And in this particular PDF, we see, for instance, that we have an annotation that I could review. So this annotation was imported from Citavi. Let's see. I think we also have some coding in here. So let's maybe switch on the coding stripe. So we see, aha, this part here has been coded to introduction. Let's see if we find anything else. Maybe a little bit lower. And here, this is one of the other categories that were used. All the categories from Citavi are now under a separate folder, which I think is a good idea. So they sit in their separate Citavi code folder. And here you find all the categories that were brought in, and also their coding. If you have a quotation with no categories, this will also be kept, and you can from here now decide what you want to do with it. All the background information about your publications has also been brought in here under reference. So all the authors, year, title, publisher, all this information is also brought into NVivo, and this can obviously help us. As I said, for instance, we, imagine we are now coding on, for specific concepts that we're looking for in our data. We can then sort for year and see how a concept changes over time. So maybe what I want to show you here, just to give you an idea, is how you can do a text search. Okay. All this literature that we have here comes from a demo project on food fraud. So we have a lot about food. So what I want to do is I want to click on where it says explore, and maybe do maybe I start with the word frequency query. Maybe for this first document here, I just want to see what words are used. So what I will do is I will create a word cloud via Visualize and Word Cloud. Let's see how long this takes. Now, when you do lexical queries, one thing that I also always mention in my trainings is that we have to make sure that we are in the correct text content language. Here, I guess all the literature is in English, so my text content language is set to English, which is why I also don't get any filler words. Let's get more space here. Let's move this around a little bit. Oops, it's not moving. So this is a word cloud. I can see the most commonly used words. They are red and a little bit larger, and then the smaller, the less frequent it's used. I see a few things that I might want to add to my stop words list, like some numbers here that I might not need, that just come from the PDF. But I find some interesting ones like drugs, technology. And if I want to take a closer look, for instance, on drugs, I can just do a right click. Oh, maybe did I zoom? No, I don't. Let's see if I can do it the other way. There we go. You know, we always find a workaround. So instead of going from the word cloud, I quickly switch to the summary. And from here, I could do a right click on drugs and get a preview of how the word drugs is used in this document. Another thing that I can do, and not, of course, not only with literature, but with any text-based data, is I can do a text search. So knowing that these texts are about food fraud, maybe I want to learn about food security, you know, and which of the texts say something about food security. For that, I would do a text search. And a text search, I can always decide where I want to do a text search. Do I want to do it in all my files and externals? So anything that I have imported, do I just want to do a text search in specific items or in selected folders? So you can always, of course, adjust where you want to search for. And this is, of course, important. We always have to be purposeful in what we're doing in NVivo. So as I said, I want to search for food security, and to be able to search for a phrase, I just need to add quotation quotation marks to put it to search for a phrase instead of individual words. So I click Run Query, and now it will search in all my articles that I've imported, and it identifies exactly 3 articles that apparently speak about food security. I don't know why this word is so hard for me. So for it, I could go and click where it says reference to get an idea of how the word is used in context. I can also click on word tree, which is another visualization that we have in NVivo, which I think is really nice, where you see the word or the phrase that you used, that you were looking for in the middle, and then you can see basically where a sentence starts and ends. All of this can, of course, be exported. So you just do a right click and you can export the word tree in different picture formats, same as the word cloud that we've seen earlier. Now, if I want to take a closer look, I can always go back to the original file. So here, for instance, in Manning, we have a lot about food security. So I can do a right click and just click on where it says Open Referenced File. And it will jump to the PDF and mark or highlight all the, all the mentionings of food security. So it looks a little bit like this. There's just one big paragraph where they speak about it. Okay, but this is just to give you an idea of what's possible in NVivo. Obviously, there are more explore tools. One thing that could be really interesting for you when you work with literature or generally larger amounts of text-based data, you can use something that is called autocoding by themes. So what I could technically do is I could now mark all my articles here and just do a right click and choose the autocode function. So in NVivo, we have different autocoding tools, and for literature in specifically, the autocoding by themes can be really helpful. This autocoding by themes or autocoding by sentiment is only available for supported text content languages, for instance, English. But if you work with literature, chances are that most of your data is in English, which means you can use the autocoding by themes. So it would run through all of your documents and start identifying themes that you can then compare. So this is kind of a broad brush or faster way of get a lot of coding done. And then from there, you can still go into depth, right? We can always go more into depth with our analysis, but just so you know, autocoding options are available as well. But I think I will stop here. There's just one more thing that I want to mention, which is our NVivo training options. We have a training coming up just next week. There's still free slots available, so you can still register. So if you're thinking, okay, this was really fast and only 1 hour, right? Please join our online trainings. It's 2 days. You get a recording. The 2-day online training also includes an individual 30-minute follow-up session where I sit just with you and I can look at your screen and help you, figure out the next steps in your own project. but with this, I will stop. And yeah, are there any questions?
Hi, Marit, and thank you for the great presentations, as always. We have some questions, but I see the clock is ticking, so I think we have to end the webinar there. And we will, of course, answer those questions who didn't get answered during this webinar later on, and send all attendees the question and answer PDF when we also publish the recording of this webinar later.
Okay, perfect.
Next week. Okay, thank you again, Marit. Have a nice day.